unrighteous will be turned to ash.
Hey, so this is gonna be my take on an Archmage Blade Vortex character. It's life based, so we get lots and lots of regen with the agnostic keystone, get a bunch of dodge, and ends up having solid clear speed and single target too. There's a bit of a disclaimer though, I think Stormbrand is generally just way stronger. So if you want to go with the best build for Archmage, go with Stormbrand, but I just wanted a bit of Blade Vortex action. So the general premise of any Archmage build is that we'll be stacking lots of mana. Archmage turns the mana cost of her skills into a percentage, so if we increase the mana cost of our skills by using, for example, Voidbringers or Fevered Minds, we can get that mana cost super high, we gain a bunch of flat damage, and then we just need to scale it with some generic lightning or spell damage, crit multi, and dealer penetration. At the same time though, mana also works as our defense mechanic, mainly because of the mechanic that we take damage as mana before life, and because of the agnostic keystone that sacrifices mana to gain life regen, which is a metric fuckton.
I have nothing more to...
For the skill tree, we're gonna go with the Scion, mostly just because Pathfinder is absolutely insane for this build, gives movement speed, flash charges, dealer penetration, and since we're scaling so much of our mana flask, we can't really get any better option. It also gives good starting position to get face aggro eventually, and a bunch of fast nodes on the side of the tree. For the Templar Ascendancy, we're gonna go with Inquisitor. It's a fairly solid option and gives a whole lot of damage and immunity to elemental ailments while on consecrated ground. Alternatively, you could go Hierophant for a bit of a tankier option, but I prefer the Inquisitor. On the tree, there's not too much special happening for an Archmage build. Firstly, we get increased skill effect duration for Blade Vortex. Around the Scion area with Elemental Equilibrium, we get the Agnostic Keystone by using Militant Faith with High Templar Venarius. Our Watcher's Eye is going to be mana recovery rate while affected by Clarity. And for our jewels, we're also going to be using 3 Fevered Mind jewels. Apart from that, we're just skilling life, mana, and flask stuff on the tree. That's basically the entire thing we'll be scaling, and we get a bunch of crit here and there. When we come from the ranger, we'll be scaling more life, more flask off, a little bit of crit multi, and then we eventually get to face aggro. But that's alright about it, tree's pretty simple. For the gear, as our weapon, we're looking for any generic one-hand weapon that's got critical strike chance for spells, crit multi, mana, and some spell damage. So we can get a wand or scepter, it doesn't really matter, as long as we can shield charge around with it. And with said shield, we're also looking for spell damage, some life, some mana, mana regeneration, and perhaps some resistances too. If you can get it, also critical strike chance to spells. For the helmet, there's the easy option of going Crown of the Inward Eye. It's an amazing helmet, gives you a lot of damage, and it's also fairly easy to get a Blade Vortex enchant on it. For the Blade Vortex enchant, I recommend a crit multi for each blade, or duration if you really need it. For the Amulet, there's really only the choice of going with series foible. It's just way too good, it gives so much mana regeneration, and the added bonus of having less attribute requirements for items and gems, which is kind of an overlooked stat, but it's really helpful. For the Anoint, we also have several options. The first one is going to be Thunderous Silvers. It makes it so we can get our Blade Vortex up to 10 stacks with just 2 casts due to Unleash. It gives it a little bit of extra crit chance, which is handy, but the top damage option is going to be Arcane Capacitor. It gives a bunch of mana, which is great for damage and defense, but it increases the effect of our Arcane Surge up to 50%, and since we can permanently run a level 20 Arcane Surge, this basically means that we get 10% more damage, which is pretty insane. Those two options are rather expensive though, so if you're looking for a budget version, you could go with any generic mana node in the tree like Dreamer, or you could go Divine Judgment, which is always a good option for elemental build. For the body armor, it's also really simple. We just go Cloak of Defiance, gives Mind Over Matter 10% of damage taken from mana before life, some extra mana. Maybe if you have a lot of budget and a lot of luck, you could Awaken or Upcraft a chest that gives you Frenzy charges and hit for 12% more damage even during box fights, and damage taken from mana before life, because our path goes towards Mind Over Matter anyways, so it's not that much of a cost. And then if you can get life, maximum mana, and perhaps some other stuff, it might be worth and viable to replace Cloak of Defiance. For the rings, I have a Cerulean ring that gives crit multi, mana regeneration. Don't forget to quality those with life and mana. Same for the Amulet. I essence crafted this one for crit multi, but I think the Warlord's rings give crit multi too. Alternatively, just mana life is good enough. I want a bit of a different route with my other ring, where I wanted lightning damage leech this life, just so we have even quicker recovery, and then still the same stuff of life mana. Don't forget to quality it. The glass spot is pretty simple to fill too. We just get the Voidbringers with increased mana cost of skills, basically as much as you can. For the belt slot, I needed to fill some resistances, so I've got a Stygian Vice with as many resists as it can possibly fit, and mana and life. The Abyss Jewel in it, this one's a little bit important. I want life, mana, and fire damage to spells, and the fire damage to spells we need for the Ignite on the Sinner Swallow on. For the boots, there is two options. Either you go rare boots with life, mana, movement speed, resistances. If you have some to fill, that's preferable. Or you go the Omeyokan boots. Those are the unique boots that give you 20% dodge chance and a bunch of movement speed and a bunch of mana. So they're a really good option. We have enough mana regeneration to fulfill that. And for boots and chants, we are looking for increased movement speed if you haven't been hit recently, elemental penetration if you haven't killed recently, or mana regeneration if you have killed recently. The flasks highly depend on the budget, honestly. You obviously need the mana flask that is enduring, that one's non-negotiable. I have staunching on it for some bleed immunity, Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline, Cinder Swallow because Cinder Swallow is just insane. The Quartz Flask, with which we nearly cap out our dodge chance, also of warding, so we're perma immune to curses more or less because we always have flask charges. Now the last one is going to be Bottled Faith, and obviously not everyone can afford one, but it's really good with the Inquisitor choice because as long as we're on Consecrated Ground we get Elemental Aim and immunity, so it's kind of insane. You could go either a normal Silver Flask if you're going the Inquisitor route, or you go for a Diamond Flask that has freeze immunity on it. Another alternative is with the ring slot, where you get memory fragments and then you can get another unique flask if you will, for example, Wise Oak. That works too. For the skill gem setup, we want Vaal Blade Vortex linked with Archmage, and then every other support skill to have as high a mana multiplier as we possibly can. So we use Unleash to get up our Blade Vortex stacks really simply. Lightning penetration gives insane damage. Control Destruction, same thing, and then increased area of effect for better clear. I don't use Elemental Focus because I think having the Ignite and the Sustain from Sinner Swallow and while mapping is way better. Also, we wouldn't be able to shock our enemies. For our weapon setup, we're looking at Flame Dash just to get out of sticky situations here and there. Also linked to faster casting. This could be replaced by Precision if you happen to find a really good Watcher's Eye with, for example, Crit Multi. And then also Vaal Rage's Fire for some more burst single target. Our shield setup is going to be Arcane Cloak, linked with increased duration and Arcane Surge. Because Arcane Cloak has such a high mana cost, because it uses a percentage, we can get a level 20 1 Arcane Surge by a single press of a button, and with increased duration we can get that up to like 8 seconds, which is pretty insane. In our helmet we're going to have Shield Charge linked with faster attacks and Fortify, just in case we get unlucky, don't dodge something and then hopefully don't get one shot. Also Enduring Cry, because I just think having the possibility to get 3 indirect charges for essentially free is pretty helpful. There's also a method of animation cancelling Enduring Cry. If you cast it and then move right after, the animation isn't going to be as long. So hey, 3 endurance charges, right? In our boots with Clarity for some more mana regeneration. Also Stormbrand linked with Power Charge and Critical Strike, this is how we get Power Charges. And Culling Strike for big bosses. Lastly, in the gloves, we have Wave of Conviction linked with Constant Hit and Collectivity. We also use Physical to Lightning to guarantee that we're gonna apply the lightning exposure, just because we don't really skill any lightning damage really. So the fire and the lightning damage is gonna be the same amount if you don't have Physical to Lightning. Which you don't want, of course, because the highest damage applies the exposure effect. So for Pantheons as a major god, we're gonna go with Soul of Solaris, which is pretty good because of the main attributes that give 6% additional Fizz reduction while there's only one nearby enemy, and 20% chance to take 50% less area damage. Those are great for boss fights. Well, most of the time there's still gonna be more than one enemy, but what makes this Pantheon really great are the additional stats. If we capture the Gorgon, for example, we take 8% reduced elemental damage if we haven't taken a hit recently. And hopefully we're not gonna get hit too often, so 8% reduced elemental damage is pretty insane. And then to follow that up, if we capture the Eater of Souls, we'll take no extra damage from critical strikes if we've taken a crit recently. And with dodge builds, most of the time you know how it goes, you get unlucky, you get hit a couple times and you fall over. This way we can reduce some of the extra incoming damage. For the minor god, there's only the option of going Soul of Shikari really. We're lacking on chaos resistance, so reduced chaos damage taken is great. Caustic Ground, nice quality of life feature, but what's really good is the immunity to poison if we capture the Terror of Infinite Drifts. Stuff like the Hunter and of course map mods make poison really obnoxious some of the time, and because we have no Flasks to get rid of poison, this just solves all the problem in one Pantheon. For the Bandits, we are going to help out Delirium. Mana regeneration, crit multi resistances is just way too good to pass up on, and we need literally every single one of those stats, so 2 passive skill points aren't gonna give us the same returns. So that's basically already it. If you want more details, you can check out the path of building in the video description, but if you decide to play this build, I hope you'll have a lot of fun. This was my first real time editing a video ever. Never really knew how to cut any clips before at all, so what I would appreciate is if you have some feedback on the editing part. But yeah, that's it for the rest of the video. Enjoy me not dying with 5000 ping on this build, I guess. See ya!